Hello, everyone, and welcome back to On the Curbs IndyCar. I'm your host, Nate Woods, and we are finally back. We finally have a race on the books for 2026. I am joined by my co-host once again, Thiemo Albers-Daly. Thiemo, how are we doing today?
Really good, thank you, Mr. Woods. And like you say, it's finally happened. We finally had a race this year.
Yeah,
People talk about the F1 off season. Oh, it's so long. No, it's not. You've had what 90 odd days. We've had 6 months since the
6
last
months.
IndyCar race. That's an off season, half a year.
It felt so long this season. I don't like the off season felt so long to me. I don't know why this off season felt longer than others, but I think maybe it was, I think probably what it was we were front loaded with a bunch of team news, like
Yeah, I
within
think
a
we had the
week after the
intensity of the
season.
schedule kind of
Yeah.
packed in one spot, and then we had all the news straight away, and then you kind of just left with nothing for
Yeah.
for the best part of that 6 months, and you go, oh, withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. So this season, I'm glad is here. And the season itself, they're starting off with a bang. When we got back to back to back races, and
All different
which
kind of venues
which
as well to
right.
keep everyone on the toes a bit extra. And
Yeah.
we've got a bunch of drivers that, okay, they haven't already, they've already not beaten Alex Palou, but we've got an interesting mix of drivers that we wouldn't have thought necessarily that some of the names would have been in there. So
Yeah.
there's potential.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we jump into the race, we've got a couple bits of news in IndyCar. We received word last week that former Indy 500 competitor Cliff Hucel had passed away. He had had three consecutive starts in the late 70s, 77, 78, 79. Thiemo, you've got some information on him?
Yeah, obviously sad news, but I always appreciate that I find out about these things because it gives you an insight into IndyCar history that you wouldn't otherwise get unless you fell
Oh,
down a rabbit hole at about 4 a.m., which is how I
yeah.
imagine you probably fall down most of your rabbit
Yeah.
holes and get your
Yeah.
information about IndyCar. So maybe after the failure of last time, I can try and teach you something about a former IndyCar competitor this time as my quest continues. But yeah, as you said, three consecutive starts from 77 to 79. Best finish came in 77 as a rookie. Coyne second in the number 29, sorry, Team Canada McLaren Offenhauser, that he'd actually bought off Johnny Rutherford, who drove it to victory the previous year in 76. So not a bad machine to have, but unfortunately, gearbox problems. 72 laps in meant he didn't finish, but he was back again the following year, and then 79, where he had his best qualifying spot of 18th. And then he had a paraplegic accident in 1996 when going across black ice in British Columbia, unfortunately, but didn't stop him. And not only did he manage a farm, which you'd think would be tricky enough at the best of times, never mind if you're paraplegic, he also managed to mentor a bunch of young drivers in the area. So not a bad showing all in all, and even got inducted into the Prince George Sports Hall of Fame for his contributions to auto racing. So wherever you look, there's always some kind of interesting story in IndyCar, and I love these stories from people that you just see in the background in these races from many, many years gone by. But there's so much more to them.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I recognize the name only through stat lines and had never really looked into his career at all. So this was another driver that certainly had a celebrated past, and it's always sad when we lose another Indy 500 competitor. I would be interested to know though who else is in the Prince George Sports Hall of Fame other than
Find
hockey
out for next
players.
episode. I'll see if there's any more motorsport drivers in there.
um, we had a doubleheader this weekend in St. Pete, an unusual doubleheader, I would say. The Craftsman Truck Series raced at St. Pete on
Yeah, first
Saturday.
time that we had that series on this kind of a course as well, if I'm not mistaken. So they're really going for that crossover potential this because obviously we've got Arlington this weekend, and the NASCAR is partnering up with this, not NASCAR proper. So we're really leaning into it. I'm up for it. It
Yeah.
was a fun race. You had such a weird, I mean, we'll
Yeah.
get into some of the drivers in a second, but it had such a weird amalgamation of drivers. You had the regular lot that you'd expect to be there, Time Majeski and these sorts of drivers. Then I'm still not used to the fact that I forget the actor's name now, but Malcolm in the Middle is, or Frankie
Oh,
Muniz is in there.
Frankie
And then
Muniz.
you
Yeah.
throw these three drivers in there and you go,
Yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah, so we had three drivers with IndyCar connections in the Craftsman Truck Race. Mario Andretti's youngest nephew, Adam Andretti, finished 23rd in the truck race. Um, I've known Adam for 25 years probably. He lives literally just a few miles from my office here. I've swam in his dad's swimming pool before with him. So that's how close we are. Bathing suit buddies, I guess we'll call it. I don't know what we call it, but
And that's the
uh,
clip I'm using for the podcast.
um, but we had Dario Franchitti came out of a 13-year retirement just out of nowhere. I don't know how this deal came together, who called who, but he came to race in the Craftsman Truck Series in St. Pete. Didn't have that great of a day, finished 27th, but we also had James Hinchcliffe on track running, and he had actually a pretty good day, I would say, finishing in the top 10 in 10th place.
Yeah, it was such a sort of random thing to happen, as you say. And I was in a press conference prior to the weekend that Dario Franchitti was in, along with Scott Dixon. Poor Scott Dixon barely got any questions. Everyone just wanted to talk to Dario about this. And Jimmy Johnson's fault, essentially. He'd floated this idea a while back, and obviously Dario had to consult with doctors to make sure that any kind of racing wasn't going to make the issues that forced him into retirement the first time would
Yeah.
come back and bite him, essentially. But okay, yeah, he had some issues with the car, but he was running in the top 10 for a lot of the race and had a bit of an upsy daisy with Hinch at one point, which was good fun to see.
Yeah.
And the thing that stood out for me was that one of the few questions that Scott Dixon did get asked was, "What did you think when you heard the news that Dario was coming back after so long?" And Scott just went, "Oh shit, I hope he's not coming back to IndyCar." So he was quite relieved when it was the Craftsman Truck Series instead, and he wasn't having to go up against him.
Yeah. So, well, after we had the Craftsman Truck race on Saturday, we had a great IndyCar race on Sunday. And well, let's go ahead and jump into. We're going to go team by team, but just to kind of highlight a few of the things we saw on track during the race. St. Pete's one of those tracks where it feels like if we can make it through turn one, they're going to make it the entire race without incident. And we made it through turn one, and
We made it
I'm
further than
thinking,
last year.
all right, guys, we made it through turn one. We're ready to go. And then of course turn four happens.
Yeah, not ideal. You were saying it was a good race, not if you're Mick Schumacher, essentially, because
No,
poor guy, talk about wrong place, wrong time. And of all the drivers to cause said incident, Stingray Rob, not helping your health. We will get to him later on when
yeah,
we get to that team. But yeah, just locked up, going turn four, takes out Ferrucci. Mick has nowhere to go, just sort of climbs on top of Ferrucci's car by the look of things, and they done. And everyone just collectively groans because you go, we really want to see what he can do. And we got four corners. We didn't even get the fourth corner. We got three and a bit corners off it.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's well, we had Mick Schumacher and Santino Ferrucci that both were collected up in Stingray Rob's slide, and unfortunate beginning of the season for both of those drivers. But then also, like you mentioned, Stingray Rob. I mean, what was it the second practice that he was in the top six or seven times? I don't remember the
This
exact
this
placement
is
he
the
was,
thing that confuses me
but
with him as a driver, though. He'll show flashes of
yeah,
capability every now and again, but it's in the most random places, like a second practice session. And then you get to
yeah,
the race and you go, never mind, we'll try again next week.
yeah. I mean, uh, we on that initial start, I was really impressed with Marcus Armstrong. He jumped what, three spots in the
You could
before the
tell
caution
it
flag.
had been 6 months since the last race. They all seem to be sort of chomping at the bit to get going and to
Yeah,
just make slightly more outlandish moves than they would perhaps normally have done, or they're just coming in hard and they go, no, this is what the new normal is for
yeah,
2026.
yeah, yeah. Scott McLaughlin led a good part of the first part of this race, the first half, and had a great qualifying run, and really, going into the race. you could tell just from interviews that he's high on this season. Like he is this is if he's going to ever beat Alex Palou, this is the season he's
This
going
is
to
the
do it.
year.
This is the year. We had an incident on lap 12. David Malukas had flat spotted his tire early in the race, but I don't remember if it was the first lap or if it was as we were coming out of the caution.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
trying to think now. I think he had ever so slight contact with someone or other, and it didn't look too bad at the time. And
yeah,
then they were doing the replays a few laps later when he started pulling off near turn four, and it was not the bit of the car that we were expecting to
yeah,
touch towards. So everyone was confused for a
yeah,
moment, and then
yeah,
he managed to recover and get back to the pit lane. But again, a bit of a what if day for him because he was running all right up to that point.
yeah. He
Solid
really was.
qualifying for first team outing with Penske, and then this sort of happens. I think that happened to a lot of drivers, though. It's sort of just
Yeah,
a lot of what did I describe it as sort of dusting off the cobwebs, and this is the only race you can sort of get away with making those
yeah,
mistakes because
yeah,
it's the first run of the year and you have that as the comfortable reasoning for it. Whereas if it happens next weekend or the weekend after, people are going to start losing patience with whoever's responsible for what in the team or if the drivers on track not quite being up to speed yet.
right. Nearing the halfway point, we had kind of an uncharacteristic Ganassi gaff, I'll say. Uh,
Segue.
yeah. Speaking of tires, we had a caution on lap 40 when Scott Dixon, who had just come out of the pits, lost a rear tire. His right rear
Yeah,
tire
and
came off the car.
you could see the wheel nut
The wheel nut.
cleanly come off.
That's not what you want to see passing you on track. Is the wheel
No,
nut.
followed
And
swiftly by the tire itself,
yeah,
going, "Oh, that's
I
definitely mine. That's
that's
not good."
that's mine. Yeah, and I like they showed the onboard camera of Scott Dixon looking in his right mirror and watching the tire come off. I'm like, oh, that's got to be.
It's a shame we didn't have team radio at that point just to hear what he might have verbalized in that moment.
So they showed replays of the pit stop itself, and it
It
seemed
looked all
like an
right.
okay stop. Yeah, it looked like an all
Yeah,
right stop. The gunman didn't give any real indication that something didn't go right on his end, but obviously it's scary anytime you have a tire come off. I think that's probably as a spectator, that's the scariest thing I think we have in the sport. And IndyCar's done an incredible job of tethering wheel hubs to cars, but if you don't get the wheel nut on all the way, it's going to come off.
I was thinking the whole time that what do the racing gods have against Scott Dixon that they just won't allow him to win at St. Petersburg? It's one of the very few
Yeah,
places he's not won at, and once again, it's not happening. So we
yeah.
need him back again for at least another season so he can
That's
try that
right.
again.
Yeah. But he's still got several races left to go this season to collect a win and keep his streak
Oh yeah, but
alive. So
specifically at St. Pete, he's never won.
specifically at St. Pete, he's never won. But uh, uh, yeah. Well, so leading up to that, through pit cycles, a familiar name in the series took the lead and pretty much held it through the end, and that would be Alex Palou.
Yeah, 12.5 seconds in the end from P2, and it wasn't as if they weren't trying. I mean, they got caught up behind Copeland for a while, and then
Mhm.
both McLaughlin and the other guy got past him, but there just wasn't enough time left. Even if they started, it needs to be over a second a lap at that point that they would have to
Yeah.
gain on Poe, and then you still got to pass the guy, which, as
Yeah.
we've learned at this point, is not easy to do.
Not easy to do.
So again, what do you do to beat Alex Palou? We don't have the answers. Please let us know in the comments if you have any ideas, because we're running out of ideas here as well. We're really scratching our heads, and so is everyone else on the grid by the look of things.
Yeah. Yep. Um, Team Penske, I think they are after Joseph Newgarden not having the qualifying session that he probably wanted.
Qualifying all
Uh,
practice.
yeah, he had kind of a slow start to the weekend, but really kind of pulled it together during the race. But yeah, I think this team just based off of this showing in this race has made the turnaround that they need to make after last
It's
season.
it's
We
it's
can just
it's
write
a
off
good
last season.
start.
Yeah,
It,
let's
it
just
I
write
think
off
when
last
we
season.
saw the crash in practice, we saw the mistakes in qualifying in Newgarden, and we thought not great, not what you want to be making a
Yeah,
reference to immediately. And then you saw the problems that Lucas had in the race. But you look at how he qualified, you look where McLaughlin qualified, and he looked stronger in one race this weekend than he had done in the entirety of last season.
yeah,
So, it's not all there. It's a bit like Andretti that we get to that. It's not all there, but the ingredients, they've all got all the right ingredients. It's just they haven't mixed it quite right yet, but that's okay. There's still time before Polo runs away.
yeah. Yeah, McLaughlin was on the pole. He finished second, as we mentioned, and then Dave Malukas with having the tire basically shred apart in the beginning of the race. Actually, had a great recovery, I thought. It
All
was
things considered, yeah.
yeah, it came from a lap down to finish 13th, and that's if you're going to salvage a day, that's pretty darn good for salvaging the day, I'd say.
And interestingly as well, in commentary that I was listening to throughout the weekend, Will Buxton is across all the questions that we wanted answers to, and it is a contract year for Joseph Newgarden. So while his qualifying is practice made of one right, it's mostly about where you finish on Sunday and going from
Yeah,
P23 to P7. That's acceptable. We don't mind that sort of recovery, and it does
yeah.
make you think once again, what if he had qualified higher up? But we'll just have to
Yeah.
chalk that one up as we did with many of the other races last year.
Yes, it's a contract year for Joseph Newgarden, but I have to believe that he's got to be pretty safe with this team,
I'd say so too, but also I know not to trust
regardless of
these
how
things.
this season goes. But yeah, we'll have to see. Arrow McLaren, I, I'd say was a pretty good
Who out
day
of
for
three?
them as well. I mean, you had Pato Ward that started fifth, finished fifth. Uh, Christian Lundgaard had an amazing day. It was one of those drivers that, through after that first pit sequence was just kind of all of a sudden there, and which is good from a standpoint of it's the same thing that Alex Palou did, wasn't really in the picture until he was. And that Christian Lundgaard was the same thing. Ended up finishing third. And then Nolan Siegel, what can we say about Nolan? I mean, qualified 22nd, finished 20th, one lap down. Um, yeah, I think
He's in a
uh,
tough spot this year. Apparently, the team bosses want him to finish top 10 of the points overall, which is going to be an ask.
it's
I
a
think if he wants to
yeah,
have his seat for next year, and
yeah.
if he doesn't get a seat next year, that team, I don't think he's getting a seat anywhere. Just
Um,
because of the sheer amount of other drivers available that you'd maybe go for.
it's a contract is I believe it's a contract year for Stingray Rob.
Okay, so you'd maybe be okay, one seat available possibly, but um,
Uh,
as for award, I found it interesting that, like you say, anonymous weekend in a lot of ways, and E5 isn't bad, but I feel like I'm always going to be a little bit more harsh on Award than other drivers, just because he's always the one that people associate the most with being able to take the fight to Palou. And
yeah.
I just go, when he's first, fifth is fine, but it's not enough. You can't rely on that and for hopefully him to make a mistake. When he's already improving on last year in terms of look at just St. Petersburg, started eighth last year, starts fourth this year, wins by a bigger margin. That's what you're batting is fifth is not going to be enough, and you need to find that extra bit of something. Whereas Lundgaard, this is where my old debate of I wish there was constructors championship, but also I don't because then you might have team orders here. He did not give a flying hoot about who the hell was in front of him for
Yeah.
all of that, and just saw an opportunity to get Pato and got him, and then
Yeah.
just went up chasing up the road. And that overtake then on Kirkwood later on in the race, that is not a part of the track you see overtaking on
Yeah.
usually. He was not waiting around at all, and he wanted to go and get McLaughlin, and
Yeah.
just run out of time. I think if there'd been a few more laps, he would have tried something. I think so. Him and McLaughlin, two names where I'm not surprised that they're strong, but I wasn't expecting them to be this strong this quickly and
Yeah.
to be at the moment the main contenders against Palou.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was kind of funny that Pato Ward, finishes fifth. top five finish to start the season, and they didn't mention his name hardly at all during the entire broadcast. And you talked about an anonymous run. That's about the best way to put it, because I mean he flew under the radar the whole race, kept his nose clean, and got that top five. So
The only way I can see this going well for him in that bust is if he's emulating George Russell from either last year or the year before, where he just consistently finishes in that top five area, but you never see him. And he's just sort of there mathematically in with a shot and just needs the top three or four to cause some confusion amongst themselves and then just sneak in that way. But I don't know if
yeah,
that's the best strategy to utilize.
yeah. Andretti Global. I've got some words for this team. I feel like they they're I just I don't know what to say about the team actually. I say I
You've got
got
some
things to
words, but
say.
you don't know what they are.
I don't know what those words are. Yeah, I mean, I want to say, Willpower didn't have the best qualifying, and then had he had a wreck in the beginning of the weekend, and they were messing around with the brakes and couldn't get those right, it felt like. And I'm wondering if, he's essentially in Colton Herta's car. I wonder if there's some sort of curse on that car.
Do we need to go and have a race in New Orleans so we can get some
That's
voodoo
right.
magic to exercise the car?
Get some good juju for this team. But yeah, Kyle Kirkwood, had a mid-pack qualifying effort, I would say, starting 15th and worked his way up to fourth. I think he's another driver like Lundgaard that was out of the picture until he was in it, and uh, I think
So that Scott Dixon incident benefited people like Pillow and like
yeah,
Kirkwood in terms of the
mhm,
timing just worked out
yeah,
right here, and we were able
yeah,
to capitalize on it. And it's a shame for him that the race wasn't just a few laps shorter because he was running quite solidly in second, but
yeah,
just the combination of the fuel load and then I'm guessing the tires were going off a bit as well, just couldn't do anything. And the
yeah,
speed at which they both just left him for dust after they finally got
yeah,
past him was
yeah.
astounding. And he was at risk then from P5 behind him, so you were kind of relieved for him in some
Yeah,
sense
Pat
that it
O'Ward was
wasn't
right
too
there at the
bad.
end of the
Yeah,
race. Yeah, yeah, it was right there. And then Marcus Ericsson, he qualified second. Great, great qualifying effort. That was, for me,
the
felt
best I
somewhat
think I've ever
unexpected.
seen him in any sport.
Yeah, and
I wasn't around
very,
for when he was high in the Indy 500
yeah,
and doing well. I came in when he'd dropped off, so to see
yeah,
this, I was going, oh, okay, maybe this is the year that he wakes up again.
yeah. He finished in sixth, but I feel like there was probably at least two, maybe three incidences on track where he could have very easily have taken himself out, and he made some questionable moves, I will say. Uh,
I liked them though, because I think it's also a contract year for him. We know
mm,
that he is
yeah,
under threat in a way that New Garden
yes, yeah,
probably isn't as much. So I like the fact that he didn't get really looked at for any of the audacious moves because they were all just on the right side of the line. He didn't push it too far, but he pushed it close. And I like that he knows where that line is potentially. Marcus Armstrong may have other
yeah. I think Marcus
opinions on that.
Armstrong probably has opinions on that. Yeah,
But from a
but
neutral perspective, I love to see it and go,
yeah,
okay, I've not seen Ericsson fight this. I'm used to him doing those kind of moves and then ending up in the wall back in
yeah,
F1 days, and it's
yeah,
for P16 out of 20, and you go, what are you doing? But
yeah,
this, I was like, that makes sense. This is okay, growth.
yeah. So maybe we're going to see more of this from him this season, knowing
I
that it's
hope
a
so.
contract year. Yeah, yeah,
I don't
I
think
hope
he's a
so too.
championship contender, but it'd just be nice to see him give it his all and it be relatively successful, regardless of then if he stays or not. So at least I know
Yeah,
that he's not just floundering in the mid, the back of the grid.
yeah, yeah. Chip Ganassi Racing, as we mentioned, Alex Palou, this weekend's winner. Not, I wouldn't say it was a surprise. I'm not. I don't want to go as far as saying, "Oh, this is more of last season." I think he just had a good race, and there was plenty of other drivers on track that it feels like have momentum going in the right direction. that can put the
You,
fight to
if,
Alex
if,
Palou.
if you
Now,
go down a conspiracy theory route, you'd go, he's got a little button inside his car that just doinged the wheel nut on Dixon's car just after he dealt with the pit stop, so it'd be perfectly timed, and then just sneaks
yeah,
him because he just the luck he has with those. We saw that a lot last season. Is just perfectly timed. Whenever something happens, he's either just pitted or can take advantage of it where it'll benefit him the most, and then he disappears off into the distance, and you go, "Gosh darn it!" He just does not have any bad luck at all when it comes to these
yeah,
sorts of things. And then if this is how, but there was an interesting thing. I don't know if you heard it in the commentary, but the team last year, particularly his pit crew, everyone's celebrating about the 8 wins he had last year, but they were focused on the 9 races he lost and went, right, how can we fix that for next year? And
yeah.
you go, oh, God, if that's how you're looking at this, then that's a whole other level of mentality. And they've started off, they've improved the qualifying. He won by nearly 13 seconds, which in IndyCar, you don't see that at all
No,
very often, unless
especially
it's
at St. Pete.
Alex
Yeah,
Palou.
yeah,
So what anyone has to do to beat him is beyond me right now because I don't know how you do it.
yeah. I mean, this was his 20th win,
Hmm.
and
And his 99th start
in his 99th start, he's got 44 podiums. I mean,
and 4 world titles in less than 100
yeah,
races.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen this in this sport. And I mean, we have the big names, Al Unser, A.J. Foyt, Helio Castroneves, these guys that are legends in our sport. And I don't think any of them had a run like Alex Palou has had.
And it doesn't look
It's
like
just,
he's slowing down anytime soon.
it does not look like he's slowing down. Unfortunate day for Scott Dixon. As we talked about, lost the right rear tire off the car and finished 23rd, but didn't necessarily have the best qualifying either. And so I think this is kind of maybe a day that he wants to write off, and maybe we'll see him again next year to try to get that St.
Next
Pete
year's the
win.
year.
Yeah, next year's the year. And then Kiffin Simpson qualified in the top 10 in 10th place, finished P15. I, I like the way he looked this weekend. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Qualifying was where I noticed him the most. We didn't see too much from him in the race, but when we did see him in the race, he was surprisingly in the mix at points and higher up than we're used to
Yeah,
seeing him, especially when you look back at the first half of last season. So, again, that comment we made about multiple drivers last year, we don't need to see you on the podium or winning races, but we need to see that little bit of improvement to understand why you're still there. We got that this weekend from Simpson. No
yeah,
notes. That's what we like to see. Happy with it.
yeah,
Nolan
yeah.
Siegel. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, that's right. Take a page from Kiffin's book and just do what he's doing, and you might be able to retain your seat at McLaren.
Simple.
Yeah, easy. Meyer Shank Racing. This was a decent weekend, I would say, for the team. You had
Yeah, mixed
Marcus
bag it felt like,
Armstrong.
but yeah,
Yeah. I mean, Marcus Armstrong always felt like he was in the hunt. He, qualified seventh, had a great start, gained several positions, worked his way up into the top five right on the first lap before the caution. Finished P11, but I don't think that was really any fault of his own.
it felt
Um,
like after the kerfuffle with Ericsson, he just couldn't get back into the swing of things and recover the places he'd lost, and it just
yeah,
went from there. And Rosequist, I'm not sure. It's weird because we were talking about them pre-season, going, this will be a year for those two to really level things up. And I don't know if we set ourselves up for disappointment then by finishing 11th and 12th, but just outside the top 10. I think it's if it were other drivers ahead of them that we'd maybe expect to be ahead of them, we wouldn't be as disappointed. But because you somehow got a Juncos Hollinger car there and both Dayle Coynes, you're looking at that team going, how did you manage to like Armstrong? You kind of understand stuff happens, but Rosenquist he just had an anonymous weekend as well, bit like a Ward, but not as strong. So interesting, but I'm looking forward to a potential charity cage fight between Armstrong and Ericsson in the future. I don't know why they don't hire me for these things. They'd very keen, lots of money for charity.
be the new hype man, the new promo guy.
Well, I've got a
Which,
competition now, as we saw in the warm up on the grid walk, so that's what I'm dealing with.
uh, Ed Carpenter Racing. I'd say almost felt like a disappointing weekend for this team.
Hmm.
Rossi qualified 25th, had horrible qualifying, did finish P16, but you know,
You'd want him to be starting P16. You'd more
yeah,
expecting that, and then
correct, yeah,
maybe challenging for the top 10. So I don't know
yeah,
what the heck happened to him.
yeah. And Rasmussen, qualified 14th, finished in 19th. I think I've got a note here that I think I feel like this is a team that's just waiting for ovals.
Luckily, not long to wait.
We don't have we got what 4 days, 8 hours, and 25 minutes. So according to the
I
IndyCar
just picture
website
you've
right
just
now.
got a
So
giant clock above your desk.
I've got it pulled up. It's right here. So but yeah, I think probably for a smaller team like this, I think this is probably the best that they could expect in St. Pete, and then
Sadly, yeah.
waiting to
They're
go to
still
the
in the
next race.
process of that rebuild and
Yeah,
progressing, but ovals is where they're at, and we just
yeah,
weren't an oval this weekend.
yep. A.J Foyt Enterprises. Uh, Good weekend for a good start in IndyCar for Cal Colette. I think
Yeah,
there's been so much attention given to Dennis Hauger as a rookie, and Dennis had a great qualifying effort and ran decent during the day. But Cal Colette qualified 24th, but finished in 17th, and just kind of chipped away at it.
I
And
think that's all you want for a rookie, really, when you're in that team in your first ever race.
yeah,
Qualifying not the best, but you qualified. You started ahead of Rossi, and
yeah,
you made up positions. Okay, some of that was retirement, but you got to stay out of all the trouble, and you got to just keep your head down and get on with it. And you've got a very easily identifiable livery, which helps. And he's
yeah,
survived some audacious and outlandish overtakes. Audacious seemed to be my word today. At points when it got all a bit hectic with the traffic, with the pit stops, and he just managed to stay out of all of the stuff that was happening on. So,
yeah,
yeah, solid enough. And Ferrucci, we talked about again him versus Timo Rob. Who would have thought that would happen again?
yeah,
But yeah, that's yeah, we know what Ferrucci's capable of. So,
yeah.
oval racing,
Yeah.
that should be fun.
I think he'll even that out. Qualified 17th, finished 24th after going out on the first lap, and just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think going into next weekend, I don't think he's got anything to worry about. I think we'll see him solidly in the top 10 in practice sessions. So uh, and hopefully we can get that translate to good starting
He,
position for him. So
he's a driver that, love him or hate him, he is good behind the wheel and he's
yeah,
entertaining to watch. So you want him in the mix, regardless of how you're then going to talk about him afterward,
that's right.
because you know you're going to have something to talk about.
Uh, Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. We mentioned Mick Schumacher, another
Wish we
rookie.
could say more, but there just
Yeah,
isn't anything to
yeah,
say.
wasn't anything to say. Yeah, not you don't want to. The last thing you want as a rookie driver is to go into your first race and finish dead last. I That's got to
Especially,
be
especially
very
when I almost
disheartening.
feel like it'd be better if it was your fault, because at least you've got yourself to blame. This, what are you supposed to do in that situation? You
Yeah,
can't. So
yeah.
you just get taken out
Yeah,
less than
another
half a lap
driver.
in, done.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time for him. I will say though, I mean, not to be mean, but from his F1 days, he's kind of used to finishing at the back of the pack. So,
Don't start with that. No, 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 no. I'm not standing for that. It's a whole new thing. Move on.
yeah. All right. So, Graham, qualified 18th, finished 18th, um, and then Louis Foster qualified in top 10. Looked solid. Uh, Started ninth and finished 14th. I kind of like what I saw from Louis this weekend.
Yeah. Again, I think it's one of those teams where you're not expecting too much. So even if Mick had continued, for example, I don't know how high we would have gone, but Louis, yeah, it's kind of he beat the more experienced teammates at the team. He's still got his feet on the table. I'm still questioning the hair choice and the moustache, but what can you do? Um, and yeah, solid enough outing. I think it's going to be interesting to see how he develops this year because the Indy next champion Dennis Hauger's come in and has put the cat among the pigeons in terms of what you can maybe expect in much lesser machinery. You would
Mhm.
argue. So where those two end up in the grand scheme of things by the end of the year is going to be fun to watch. But Louis, not a bad start.
Yeah, I appreciated seeing Graham's name in the top 10 on the ticker at different points
Yeah,
during the race. Obviously through pit sequencing, but I'm like, oh, yeah, Graham Rahal's
you
there.
still
How
got to
about that?
be near it to
Yeah.
actually get promoted up there in the first place. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of Dennis Hauger, Dale Coyne Racing, this was a team that we're pretty excited about
I
in
am
the
really
off season.
much.
Once we got this team, set with Hauger and Grosjean, we're like, this might be a team to watch. And it felt kind of strange to say because Dale Coyne, quite frankly, has not had the best success on track in the last 10 years. There's been flashes, but when we had these two drivers teamed up, we're like, all right, they might be able to do something. And they did something.
Yeah, that's the thing. We weren't expecting them to do this though. We were expecting
Yeah.
an elevation, but not this much of an elevation. And I think last year they were sort of as an outfit, my David Malukas, I'm gonna just give them all the love and attention because I want them to do well. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is about the team, but I just like whatever vibes they're giving off.
Mhm.
And then they just went and knocked out the park. And Grosjean's a driver where I wonder sometimes about him. I mean, he's still winless since 2011 or 2013 or something
Yeah.
silly like this. He
2013.
hasn't
Yeah.
won anything. Whereas Helga, he's had such an interesting motorsport story so far, and for him to see the writings on the wall with Red Bull all those years ago, not that
Mhm.
many years ago now, but it feels like
Yeah.
it.
Feels like
Um,
it.
to take the leap over to America, go into Indy next because he didn't want to jump the gun to dominate, and then come in and do this straight off the
Mhm.
bat. You go qualifying P3, outstanding, out qualifies Alex Palou immediately on first attempt.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, finish P10, but you weren't expecting him to finish P10 anyway.
Yeah.
So insane. And then Grosjean, a year and a bit on the sidelines,
Yeah.
qualifies P6, finishes eighth. Absolute madness. And my question for you is because this is the first time since 2022 that both Dale Coyne racing cars have been in the Fast Six. When was the last time and who was driving for them? Yeah, I'm going to be mean to you.
So in 2022, um, you got me. I would say probably was Connor Daly there.
No, and it's quite amusing that you don't know one of the drivers because it was David Malukas
Ah,
partnered up with Takuma Sato.
Takuma
They went
Sato.
on to
Okay.
then finish in P11 and P13 respectively. So now that we already qualified better as well, because I can't remember. I think it was they were in the top six, but I think these two did slightly better job of it. But then they finished higher as well than Akuma and David did back then. So they have started in
Yeah.
a very good fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. Great run for that team. And um, Hauger, I'm not ready to crown Hauger yet as the rookie of the year, but God, with the effort that he put in versus what we saw
Going to be
from
tough
everybody
for the other
else,
two.
it's gonna be tough. Yeah. So, finally, we got Hucos Hollinger Racing, Rinus VK and Stingray Robb. Obviously, we've talked about Stingray, the bonehead move that he had at the beginning of the race. Still was able to limp it back home, and although 7 laps down, finished 21st. But then
Maybe this is going to be the
Rinus,
challenge for this year. It's going to be he's called Stingray Rob, but we're going to have to give him other underwater animals nicknames as he goes along. So this one feels like a hammerhead sort of move.
yeah,
So that's what it's going to be for
yeah.
these hammerhead Rob for St. Pete's. What we're going to have in Phoenix. Let's see if we can do something there.
So, Reese VK, great day for him. Qualified 19th, so not the best effort there, but finished in the top 10 in
Yeah,
ninth
just kind of
place.
snuck in there.
And
It wasn't until Will
yeah,
Buxton mentioned him in the commentary that I noticed that he'd actually been. I was like, oh
yeah,
yeah, how the heck did he get up?
yeah.
Well,
So, and I think that's when Hunkos Hollinger went after VK when he was needing ride, I think they saw what we knew Renus was capable of. We've uh, seen great things from him in the past in different teams. At this point, he's kind of a journeyman. How many different teams has he been with? And every team
he's
he
doing
goes
Carlos
to,
Sainz.
yeah, and it seems like every team he goes to, we see something from him that's like, oh, that if we can string together that, into a couple races, we've got a shot at something nice. So, so good to see him with the top 10. And yeah, I don't know, just I think if we get Stingray Rob to stop doing Stingray Rob things, I think this team could be
I think
elevated
Rob
this season.
needs to turn into more of a kraken and just pull all these cars closer to him so he can then get past them
Yeah.
instead of pulling them in towards him and then causing a crash. So we need
And
the
then
right kind of
causing a
kraken
crash.
energy.
So, so we've come to one of my favorite segments, the Hot Not and Hard Luck Awards. Who was
First one of the
hot this
season.
weekend for you? First one of the season. Who was hot for you?
I had to go with Joe's Newgarden just because he went from looking like I was going to stick him automatically in the not section to really upending it and getting into the good graces again. So, like we say, that massive difference from where he started to where he finished, getting into the top 10 comfortably. Again, frustrating that we couldn't have him higher up, but he made the moves and he looked hungry. And I think I was writing a piece on key takeaways to take away from the weekend at St. Pete's. And you're looking at Kirkwood, you're looking at Lundgaard, and looking at McLaughlin as the obvious contenders to go after Palou this year. But you can't discount someone like Newgarden because if this is what he does with a bad qualifying, then let's just hope he can have a good qualifying sometime soon and show us what he could maybe do as he did in Nashville last year. We need more of that Newgarden back to have a bit more of a threat.
Yeah. For me, Christian Lundgaard is my hot driver.
Mm.
Just watching him get up through the field and finish on the podium. He had that great pass there at the end of near the end of the race on Kirkwood that was
It's a statement move.
a statement move. That's the kind of move that hungry drivers make. That's the kind of move that uh, great drivers make. Those really top tier drivers make. And uh, I think he's going to be fun to watch this season. I'm looking forward to it. But also, I want to my hot award. I want to
So
give
I have
to.
questions about
You have
this.
questions about this? I don't. Do you guys get the true Fox broadcast there, or is it kind of like
No,
you?
we
Okay,
get the commentary, but when you go off to an ad break, we get our own commentator, Tom Gamer, who's doing the IndyCar podcast with Jack Harvey at the moment. And when you cut away to certain things, we don't always get it. Like the cutaway car, we don't get that. We hear about it, but we don't see
yeah.
it. So I saw this on your thing. I was like,
So,
Christian, that makes sense. But this,
so
what the hell
yeah,
is Nate
so
sniffing there?
yeah, the Florida Tiki Tours of St. Pete. And I know you guys don't have these probably over there, but um, here in the coastal cities, we get tiki boats, and essentially it's a big pontoon boat that they build a tiki bar on,
Ah,
and
yes,
they
this
just putz around in the water. They showed this boat, this Florida Tiki Tours boat, on all. It's felt like almost every bumper in and out of a commercial break on the Fox broadcast. I mean, they had it on there maybe 5 times. I'm like, this guy's having the best advertising day ever. I'm like, I want to go on a tiki tour now. He's St. Pete. That'd be the best way to watch the race.
this time next year, who knows? Maybe we're talking about it.
That's right. See if I can use a press credential to get on one of those.
I'll give you a
So,
good mention in the article I write about this. I'll throw a shout out on the podcast.
yeah. Not hot for me. I'm going with Santino Ferrucci. Not the start that he wanted. Obviously, no fault of his own, but this is a driver that's capable of finishing in the top 10 in points, I feel like. And to finish next to last in the season opener is a disappointing way to start the season for sure. And
Starting in 17th as well, you'd sort of, it's not what you expect him, but you'd expect him a little higher up, so maybe he shouldn't have been
yeah,
involved in the first place because he just should have
yeah,
done better.
right. Yeah. And when I say I expect him in the top 10, I'm not saying I expect him challenging for the championship, but I expect him in like
Oh, no, no,
eighth,
come on.
ninth, 10th
We're
place.
being realistic
Yeah.
about it. I know, I
Yeah.
know.
Being realistic about it. But yeah, but realistically, I think he should be a top 10 driver in the championship at the end of the season. Still, even with this finish, and we've got a long season. But yeah, just unfortunate.
I went for Stingray Rob. There's no one else I could really choose for that one. In the same way that the Hard Luck Award, there's only one obvious candidate, Stingray Rob.
Yeah,
I just think, again, just not hot, dude. Not hot.
yeah, yeah. And we both picked the same driver for Hard Luck Award, and the drum roll, please, Mick Schumacher. And
Definition of
just
hard luck, if ever there was one. If you look up
yeah,
hard luck in the dictionary, it's a picture of that.
that yeah. So we also had Indy Next opening their
Hmm.
season here at St. Pete. Um, it was I think it was a fine race. Did you get a chance to
Caught
watch
the
it?
I caught the short highlights.
Okay. Um, it felt like what the second half of the IndyCar race felt like, but it was the entire race.
Okay.
People kept clean, didn't have a whole lot of major incidents on track. Nikita Johnson, who's a driver we've mentioned here on the podcast
Hmm.
before from his days in USF, and um, rookie driver now in Indy Next, qualified second, took the lead from Max Taylor on the first turn on the first lap, and never looked back.
Yeah, I was interested to see the name pop up. So annoyingly, with how these things work, I saw the result before I got to see the highlights, and I was intrigued by that name because I was thinking you've got Lockie Hughes and Miles Rowe. What the hell are they
Yeah,
doing? And
yeah.
they're down in what, fourth and fifth or something around there.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
even
Lockie
for
Hughes,
Miles
I
Rowe.
think,
He was
finished
just outside the
fifth.
top
Yeah,
five.
yeah,
So I was intrigued by that and went, okay, we've got a bit of a different season at hand potentially, or it's just one of those one-off things. We will find out soon.
yeah. Another rookie on the podium, though. Timic. I know it's gonna.
I'm
I
glad
know
you
this.
went for
I
this.
know this name. I know the name. I practiced the name, and now I can't say it. Timik Kucharzik. There we go. I have to tell myself. It sounds like
Like
a.
Chadwick.
It sounds like a Pfizer drug. Kucharzik. Seems like we should hear it on a commercial. So, but
There's another potential clip for the podcast. I'll
that's
tag
right.
him and we'll see if we can get him some sponsors from the pharmaceutical companies.
But yeah, great day for him. And then we had Seb Murray finishing fourth, which is a name, you know, we remember from last season, but usually not, you know,
Not
in
that high
really a
up.
good way. Yeah, not that high. So great day for him. So hopefully this can be a good breakout season for him. And then, yeah, we mentioned Lockie Hughes finishing fifth. I think, uh, during the broadcast, the commentators were pretty high on Max Taylor. I think, this is, we know what he's capable of. And I think he's a driver where Indy Next is really just a stepping stone to IndyCar or
Mm.
to wherever he might end up. Um, and he's going to be hard to beat this season, but I think it's going to be a fun
Well,
season to
you say
watch.
that
Yeah,
happened immediately.
yeah, right. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to this season as well. Here in America, I know Indy Next has always kind of been that um, forgotten stepchild. It feels like to full IndyCar, but this season Fox has committed to airing all these Indy Next races, and
Yeah.
we're going to get to see a lot of these even on network television this year. So that'll be
That'd
fun.
be great just for the
So
drivers as well, just in terms of general exposure. If you're only there for one or two races, say as we see for a lot of the drivers, then
right.
just having that extra boost of an audience, you never know who's watching. We talked about that a lot last year. Really great for drivers at that stage of their career.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't get to see them at Phoenix this weekend. We got to wait a couple weeks until we get to Arlington to see Indy Next back on track. So, but I think that pretty much wraps it up. I've got a note here that I'm supposed to ask you about something.
Yeah,
Uh,
because we were saying next race up is obviously Phoenix. We're hoping it's first over of the season. We're hoping for maybe a little bit more of an exciting race than what we've got in St. Pete's. I think St. Pete's was a nice appetizer and we had moments of excitement in that race, but we could have done with a little bit more. So the story I have for you is courtesy of another press conference I was in prior to the end of the weekend with Chip Ganassi in attendance to that one, and he said that my PR people are gonna hate me for this because I'm going incredibly off topic here, but I have a story about Phoenix I want to tell, so I'm just going to go and tell it. And basically, when he was racing, you remember he was sitting in the car in the pit lane one day, one session, and the crew just started running away from the car, and he couldn't tell why. He was really worried about what was going on with the car. Was there fuel? Was there smoke out the back? What was happening? He's strapped in. He can't really go anywhere. And Bobby Unser comes along, and he's just got a massive rattlesnake that he's just jamming in his face the whole time, and he's just pulling pranks on him, and he can't go anywhere about it. The whole team was just scared out of their wits, and they were running away from it. And I just thought that's the kind of vibe we're going to for this weekend with Phoenix. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, rattlesnakes are a very real thing at that racetrack. I've never seen a race there, but I've been to the facility a few times. It's a gorgeous facility. I would love to see a race there someday. Um, but I would definitely want to be in the bleachers, high up from where the snakes are. They got Rattlesnake Hill. It's kind of off behind. Is it
That's not something
turn
that
two,
needs
I
to
think?
exist.
Yeah, Rattlesnake Hill is right there off at turn two, I think, and it's like a viewing hill where you can go and just set up lawn chairs and blankets and watch the race. But
Couldn't pay me.
I wouldn't be able to concentrate if I was sitting up there on the race. I'd be too worried about something slithering up behind me.
Not a chance. Not a
Yeah,
chance.
yeah.
That sounds like
So,
too much of potential for Jackass in the future to do something
yeah.
there. I don't trust it.
So, well, that wraps it up. We got a short turnaround this week because we had a race on Sunday and now we've got a race on Saturday. We're kind of we're flip flopping this last weekend for this coming weekend where we had NASCAR and then IndyCar on the same track, and this weekend we've got IndyCar and then NASCAR. So, um, another great weekend of racing ahead of us. I'm looking forward to this race. It's got a long history and Phoenix
I'm
should
excited
be.
to see my first IndyCar race at this venue. I haven't gone back through the archives to have a look at anything. I want to just go in clean and fresh, no expectations, and see what we can do. And
Oh,
hopefully,
you're
someone
gonna
can
like it.
beat that darn kid
You're gonna
Coyne.
like it. Now we've got two current drivers that have won at Phoenix.
Scott Dixon, I'm guessing, is one of them.
Yes, he is.
As for the other, Will Power's the only other one who's old enough, surely. But I
Nope.
don't think he's won there. So you're going to put me out my misery. Who is the other driver?
So Scott Dixon won in 2016, and Joseph Newgarden won
Ah,
our last outing at Phoenix in 2018.
and as we saw not too long ago in the grand scheme of IndyCar races, he's quite good on an oval. So maybe this will be
Yeah,
where he starts his
I
fight back already. I
this
love that
this
he's already
could
having to fight back, but we're
yeah.
just not going to focus on that too much.
That's right. So, but we'll be back next week to cover the race in Phoenix, and we hope everybody joins us then. We'll see everybody soon.